George Floyd's death,
Yeah.
1 year later, and you couldn't get the act done, right? Well, it triggered protests, remember, around the world. It impacted life in ways so many people didn't imagine. A lot of people woke up, and joining us this morning to talk about it is the one and only Charles Blow, our colleague, and the host of BNT's Prime with Charles Blow, and also Marc Lamont Hill, no relation to you, Michael. That's good for Mark.
That's
who
baby
joins
cousin.
us Black News Tonight. Well, because he's just so brilliant. I don't know why I wouldn't even go on his show if I was going to come up against him. Neither one of these gentlemen. We read the column, Charles, but here I go. First question for you. Welcome, and thank you for getting up with us this morning. You guys never let us down, and we look to you and your words as just some of the key thinkers of our time. And Charles, I'll ask you this. Give us the historical perspective here, the effect of George Floyd's death on our greater society and this awakening.
Well, first, I think we have to question whether or not using the word awakening is appropriate. There was massive protest in the wake of George Floyd's death, and if you believe the polling around those protests, it was about 15 million people who said that they protested in the wake of those George Floyd's death, which is just an extraordinary number, and that's just in the United States. It's not even around the world. I think like 3 times as many of those people were white as they were black. There were even more Hispanic people in that poll who said that they protested than black people. So it's just an extraordinary cross-racial movement of protest. But it did not happen in a vacuum. It happened at a time when there was a worldwide pandemic that we had not seen in at least 100 years. And so the question becomes whether or not those protests were organic and real and enduring, or if it was like a hall pass. It was people had been trapped in the house. You did not have your rights of passage. You couldn't go to concerts. You couldn't go to. They had canceled your prom. They had canceled your graduation. You couldn't go to birthday parties. But all of a sudden, there was a thing that you could do, and it was honorable to do it. You wouldn't get arrested. You wouldn't get chastised for doing it, and those things happen in tandem. And so that's a question. There's an interesting article in the New York Times today. It appears in the opinion section, but they use data to make the argument. So the data are real; they're not opinion, which shows that a massive drop in support for Black Lives Matter from the peak of the protests last summer, and white people's support of Black Lives Matter is now below where it was at the beginning of 2020.
Wow.
So is that an awakening? Or was that some sort of blip in the pandemic?
Yeah, and that was like, once again, the beginning of 2020. That was before George Floyd's death. I don't want to ask you guys questions. I just want to have a conversation, because it's like a roundtable situation for me, Mark. Because as much as things we think have changed, and we got a conviction out of Derek Chauvin, that's a win. We've had wins before. Walter Scott's killer, that was a win. We saw Botham Jean's killer, that was a win. But how much has really changed? Where are we right now? That's the discussion I want to have.
Yeah, it's a really complicated situation. I mean, on the one hand, there is a sense of accomplishment when people are being convicted, when years before they probably wouldn't have been convicted. I'm always sketchy about or hesitant about the word win, because it suggests that we're at the finish line on that case. For example, when someone gets killed and we declare it an act of justice after their killer gets convicted, it ignores the fact that justice would be if they were still with us, if they were alive. Justice would be if they were still on the planet, if their family still had their loved one. So all we're really trying to do is get some sense of accountability for something that's unjust and irreparable. And even the accountability is somewhat limited because we tend to hold the shooter accountable, the killer accountable, not the systems that produce that person and that produce that situation. And so for me, change, because Mike, I think you're right. The implicit question you're asking is, has anything changed here? And the answer is nah. because we still have the same systems,
Right.
we still have the same patterns, we still have the same practices. Now, one thing that I think has changed a bit is that there's a way that we always gave the officer the benefit of the doubt. Black folk, white folk, disproportionately gave officers the benefit of the doubt. And I think now when we see a police-involved shooting, at least people pause and ask the question. At least now people want to see the tape. They want to know what happened. We still give officers structurally the benefit of the doubt too much. And I love the conversation you and Sharon were having around qualified immunity, because it speaks to that very question. Are we willing to make systemic and legal changes to make sure that people are held more accountable, and do those mechanisms that are being proposed work?
Yeah, and so, and following up on that, because when we talk about change, and we can't do it in a vacuum, right? Because we see the Ronald Green situation down there years later, and still this brazenness from the police, the good old boys down in Monroe, Louisiana, or whether it's the Andrew Brown stuff where you're on the back of a pickup truck. And even with the world watching the backdrop of Mr. Floyd's horrific murder, they still only released the footage under duress 10 seconds ago. So Charles, what about the brazenness and the hold the line way of doing business that we're still seeing from authorities?
Well, I think Mark makes an important point. Not a single law was changed when Derek Chauvin was murdered for killing George Floyd. Nothing, right? And more broadly than that, even when you see laws being changed, they're being changed in local municipalities or on state levels. Everything is provincial when it comes to policing. At least the George Floyd Policing Act would be one of the first modern attempts to constrict police behavior on a national level. But it seems like it is going nowhere at the moment. People have their fingers crossed. But nothing has changed. Mr. Green's death in Monroe, Louisiana, happens only a few months before George Floyd. I think we have to just pause and remember that is only about, whatever, how many months, getting the math right now, months right before George Floyd. It is also outrageous. And the entire system protects the people who killed him. You can't tell me that they're the people who had on the body cameras, the only people who saw the body camera footage.
Right.
The medical examiner who does the autopsy does not suggest that this man had been pepper sprayed and kicked and beaten in the face.
Right.
And a medical examiner knows the difference between a car crash and a beating. The entire system goes into overdrive to protect the officers who have done this to this man. So I don't know that anything has changed. Even when you get a conviction, that's just 12 people in a particular jurisdiction presented with a particular case.
Yeah.
That says nothing whatsoever about how another 12 people in another jurisdiction presented with the same case would behave. Not a single law has been changed in that regard.
And that's the problem. And see, I think we've been so focused on the police officers that we're not looking at the entire system. We're not looking at the district attorneys in North Carolina when it comes to the Andrew Brown situation. We're not looking at the medical examiners. We're not looking at judges. We're not looking at the entire thing. Have we been so tunnel visioned when it comes to making sure that the police officers act right that we've overlooked the bigger problem, the bigger issue, the people who are allowing these police officers to get away with this and obviously covering it up? Because Ronald Green's situation isn't the first situation. We know, we're not naive as black people. That was the first time that we suspected or even know of a cover-up when it comes to these type of incidents.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is a crisis of imagination. we have to have a more radical imagination. We have to be able to imagine systems and worlds and social arrangements that are totally different than the ones we have now. The powerful win when we only talk about reform. Because reform means that everybody's still in place, but we just tweak. We just cut along the edges, and we do what we can to make things a little more bearable, a little more livable under really unlivable circumstances. But what we have to do is invoke a radical imagination. This is what Dr. King is talking about, right? Imagine a new world. This is what Malcolm X is trying to invoke. This is what Angela Davis is trying to invoke right now, to get us to imagine new possibilities where we don't just say, can we have warmer and fuzzier police? Can we have nicer prison cells? But instead, can we imagine a world fundamentally where people's needs are being met? Where a person with a mental illness doesn't get the police called on him. Where Walter Wallace in Philly doesn't get shot holding a knife because someone has already invested in him in terms of his mental health, so that there's no police, so that there's no knife necessary, or there's somebody other than an armed police force to deal with him when he gets there. Those are the type of systemic changes that have to say. We have to say, how do we invest in drug rehab and drug treatment so that we're not walking around criminalizing folk? How do we invest in cities so that the police in Ferguson aren't tax collectors walking around arresting Mike Brown for jaywalking? We have to imagine a whole new social arrangement, but they don't want that. Because if they do that, a whole bunch of people who are powerful become a little less powerful.
So Mark, though,
why can't we demand that?
Imagine this new world, and if we are to get investment in it, how do we get there? Can we choke them off and force it with the money? Can we take our black dollars that I hear so much about, so powerful, and use it to choke them into compliance and into that imagined and investment that you speak of?
I think it's all the above. I mean, I think about Charles's wonderful new book. I think about how where we live and our social migration, right, can
south.
Shift how America functions. I think about how we spend our money, how we vote, all of these things. But I'm going to say this one more time. It's even if we have collective action, the question is, what are we collectively acting for? We also need political education. We need to learn what's possible and dream what's possible, and then mobilize that energy and make it happen.
I love it. Boy, I love talking to you guys. But then you give me so many other things to think about and where we go from here, that daily education. Go ahead, Mike.
Charles, you think we're going to see the change necessary very soon? Are you optimistic?
Well, optimism is a strange concept for. Well, listen, I will say this: is it possible to reform policing in America? Absolutely. Do we have the commitment to doing so? Is the question. Is it possible for police to reform themselves? The answer is absolutely not. Do we have the commitment to saying we want to remake the system? That is the question.
Do you believe in us in order to be able to mobilize and do the right thing, to come together to make sure that this change happens? Not what they want to happen, but what we have the power to do. Do you believe in us, black people?
Listen, this is a bigger conversation, but as Mark said, my proposal to deal with this is much more radical than any of this, which is colonization of southern states. My proposal is is a bigger step, which is to say the only way you're going to get this done is that you do it yourself, and the only way to do it yourself is that you consolidate enough power by consolidating enough people, so that you control districts, so you control cities, you control districts, you control states, and then you have enough power to get it done. Short of that, it is hard for me to see how you could simply cajole and convince enough white people that they should be going along with you, that they get it done. Because what I've seen is that white people, even in liberal places, when things start to get hard or there is a little spike in crime, they start to renege on their commitment. You see now what is now being called refund the police as a movement, as you see violent crime spiking in urban spaces around the country. These people are traumatized because they just come out of a pandemic, and their communities were the most likely to have been affected by that pandemic. So we have not even begun to understand the incredible trauma that is taking place in these communities, and they're largely disproportionately black and brown communities. And so now you see people come out, and there's violence often coming out of those communities, and the first reaction that people will have is the one that they always have, which is say, oh my God, there's something wrong here, there's something pathologically wrong, we need to crack down on these people, we need more police to control them rather than dealing with them and treating the underlying mental trauma that they have endured. And so even the good people, even the white people in the big city, even in New York and even in Chicago and even in LA will turn on you. And they will start to say, we want more policing as we have it now, rather than new policing as it could be. So yes, you're asking me a question about optimism. I can't give you the answer that's going to be the polite answer for television because I know too much history to give that answer. It is not going to happen. In fact, the inverse is going to happen.
We want real. Yep, we want real. Like you said in your New York Times op-ed last year, not just when it comes to policing, but when it comes to equality, we're going to see if they stay with us when true equality threatens their privilege. That is what I'm talking about. So that's what you're discussing as well. Charles Blow, Marc Lamont Hill, my brothers, we really appreciate you starting your day with us. Of course, we'll be checking you guys out later on tonight. Absolutely. Respect.